If this is the first time you're ever hearing about Jordan Peterson, sorry. You're a fan of Jordan Peterson? I am not sorry for what I'm about to say. I've never watched this video before, so this is going to be some fun shit. 8 minutes, Jordan B. Peterson giving some dating advice for men, so this advice shouldn't apply to me directly. But I am wanting to see how valuable I think this advice would be to people trying to flirt with me, trying to pick me up, so to speak. So let's have some goddamn fun. We're gonna make you gross. Gonna be fun.
If you're civilized enough so that people don't shun you, and you have people around you, then they're going to be always telling you how to not be too insane. Well, if
Yeah.
you're alone, you drift.
The best dating advice. Okay, let's see how
So
effective it
advice
is.
can you give to people who are looking to have a strong and meaningful and lasting relationship with someone?
Well, the first thing is to decide if that is really what you want.
Is that
You know,
fair,
and-
do you think, to say, I want to be single forever? Do you think that's realistic or fair assessment of oneself?
There are aromantic people, listening to one right now, that don't actually have that drive. There's not many of us. Exist. But I understand that it's a mindset that's not understood or even considered by the majority of people.
I think that's, for most people, a pathway to insanity.
Yeah.
You know,
Thank you.
the psychoanalysts used to think that, and we all think this way in some ways, that you're sane because you're well put together. Your psyche is well structured, right? It's internal. Somehow
Fuck does
inside
that
your
mean?
head. And there's some truth in that, but here's a more accurate viewpoint, I think. You outsource most of your sanity because it's too complicated. And so what you do is your parents raise you to be vaguely acceptable to other people. And then you're surrounded by other people your whole life. And then every time you go off the rails a little bit, even just a little bit, people signal to you. Like, you make a joke.
Yeah, so parents raise you to be vaguely acceptable. What the fuck? No, your parents raise you how they think you should present yourself to be the most acceptable, not to be vaguely acceptable. Parents do want what's best for their kids, even though they're a lot of the time misguided with how they fucking do it. It's not funny to people.
It's not that funny and people don't laugh. And you think, oh, well, I should probably rethink my sense of humor a little bit or pay more attention. Or you tell a rambling story and you notice that everyone's like lost in the distance. And so if
That's more about reading the room than being funnier per se or working on your sense of humor. Like, I'm pretty open about you can joke about most things if you phrase it right and you put it in the right context. There are some jokes that will not fly in the majority of all communities, even if they're funny and make you laugh.
you're civilized enough so that people don't shun you, and you have people around you, then they're going to be always telling you how to not be too insane. Well, if you're alone, you drift. You drift, and you'll drift in the direction of your biggest weakness. And so, there are some people, maybe they're
Yeah, that's true.
disagreeable. They're not cut out for a lot of social contact. But we're social animals, man, right to the core. And
I don't think it's that they're not cut out for social contact. I think it's they've had too little interactions and too little experience to properly feel a sense of confidence in oneself to really interact socially. It's very complicated. You as in Jordan, because I am talking directly, I am grandstanding here, this is fun. You do have more education on me in this field, but I think that your education does not show your intelligence. We'll see.
And it's a
I phrased that really well.
for the vast majority of people.
Mm.
I think that people are having a harder time finding, like, let's call them more permanent relationships, is because it's become increasingly easy to have fleeting, casual sexual relationships. I mean, Tinder is a revolution, right? It's a revolution in sexual behavior, and it's certainly not obvious that it's a
Is it a social thing? Is it just technology? Is this what people want to be doing?
People want to let them
in some ways.
But the technology has enabled this fleeting sexual activity.
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. And that's, but we don't want to underestimate how radical a technology that is. That's
right.
especially for men.
I do feel that deep down that all these people, men and women alike, are always longing for something more meaningful.
Well,
not always. I mean, I'm not looking for romantic relationships. I'm looking for fun. I'm not looking to... what is it? And yes, I know this advice doesn't correlate to me, but they are speaking very generally. I do not know... we're almost halfway through, and I don't know how this is specifically for men, besides them just casually adding for men later. They've been speaking very generally, but that's what Jordan Peterson does.
I think that that's generally the case. I mean, part of the reason for a relationship is sexual contact, obviously. Well, that's you don't
part of it.
need a relationship for that. But
no, you don't. Hey, you're right for once.
That's not the reason to be with someone. The reason to be with someone, when there's a lot of them. So one is, well, kids who have two parents do far better, period. The data on that is crystal clear. Doesn't mean that there aren't many single parents who struggle to do a wonderful job. Right? Yeah. That's not the same thing. It's an average issue. So you need, plus, it's a lot of work to have kids. You kind of need to divide up the labor, especially in the first year or two, because the woman is completely overwhelmed in the first year, and she needs somebody around to take care of her while she's taking care of the kid, fundamentally, or at least that's the way it looks to me.
Yeah, it's almost like having multiple parents makes it easier to rear children. It's almost like even just two parents with more than, like, let's go with 3 kids might not be enough to really give each child the attention they need. So if only there were a way to almost raise children communally with multiple adults with different schedules and different free times able to sync up and help raise the kids together. If only that were a thing, but too bad we live in the world created under God and the one man, one woman.
So there's that. You need the stable basis for children, and it takes them a long time to mature, and they need to learn that relationships are trustworthy, right? So there's utility and stability there. But then also, you kind of want to tangle your life together with someone, because you have someone to... well, it's like 2 ropes that are tangled together. It's stronger, especially during times of weakness. And you have 2 brains instead of 1, and that actually turns out to be really helpful when things are complicated. And it builds a solidity into your life and a reality into your life to have someone who's along with you on this very long voyage. And so I think that deepens your life in a way that isn't really possible with fragmentary relationships as a single person.
Definitely.
And then there's more to it.
I don't really benefit from fragmentary relationships, no. I do tend to avoid them where it's like just one night stands. That's no interest to me. I prefer to have actual friendships I can develop with people and then spend time with them, get to know them, and rail them really hard sometimes. Like, is that so much to ask? I'm not looking to tie my life to people because society tells me to. I'm looking to spend the time I can with the people I care about. If I get to spend only a week with them, a month with them, that's okay. Do I want more of the friendships where I can regularly get to see them, get to spend time with them for years? Yes. Especially if I can rail them. But I'm not looking to force any relationship to last a lifetime. Even if the relationship doesn't last with me that lifetime, the impact that person had will stick around. Whether you like it or not, we are influenced by everybody, indirectly and directly.
To it than that. It's like, I think of wrestling. There's this scene in the Old Testament where Jacob wrestles with an angel. He's wrestling with God, actually, which is quite an interesting. That's what Israel means, right? Wrestling with God. Yeah, that just blew me away when I learned it. It's so
Is that true?
The true people of
Hebrew?
Israel are those who wrestle
Neat.
with God.
Huh.
Yeah, it's not believe exactly. It's a whole different thing, man. It's a whole different thing.
Isn't it like fear from God? What it means? That's what I thought.
Well, it did from the work I did in the last couple of months.
In like every context I'm aware of, the thought of wrestling with God is struggling with faith to believe. Is there any other context you can wrestle with God? Please answer that question.
Looking at this, and I looked into it quite deeply, it does mean wrestling, essentially, and it does derive from that scene in the Old Testament where Jacob wrestles with God. That's when he gets the name Israel. And his hip is dislocated, right? Permanently. He has a permanent limp after that. It's no joke. But I think of marriage the same way. Like, people think, well, they lived happily ever after. It's like, that's not what you want in a marriage.
Yeah.
You want someone to contend with, you know, because...
Okay, straight people are not okay. That's all I needed to know. Thank you, Jordan. You want somebody to contend with? No. You can have that happily ever after while having your partner or partners be individuals, and as being individuals, there will be points where you don't agree on things. I think it's actually healthy to be able to say, hey, I don't agree with you on this, and then actually discuss your disagreements, but not focusing on that. Is that what you're doing, Peterson?
You learn through that wrestling, you know,
Sure.
like you learn where you're an idiot and where you should stop being, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So that's the
Jesus
spiritual
Christ,
aspect
that
of marriage.
footage.
It's the
Straight
fact that
people
you
are
have to
not
contend
okay.
with someone under all sorts of circumstances. Theoretically,
Under all
is
sorts of
what would you say? It's a manner of promoting psychological, or you could say spiritual growth.
people think this guy is morally justified and correct and smart?
And it's genuine. You know, that's why marriage is a sacrament in most human communities, right? It's stamped both by the state and by the sacred authorities, because it's not just a physiological union. That's what animals do. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with the physiological union, but it has to be placed in the
There's nothing wrong with the physiological union. I just don't want you to do it.
context of everything else a human being is. And I do think it's dreadful for people not to have that. And
Do you think it's become harder for people to have meaningful, lasting relationships, or has it always been this hard? I feel like I thank God that I'm not dating now, because I feel like it seems like it's miserable out there right now
well, it's
to try
hard.
to meet.
Just saying, having this kind of dating advice sent out by figureheads like Jordan Peterson is probably contributing to why it's hard out there. Just saying.
People.
It is hard although, you know, it's easier to meet people because there's more ways of meeting them.
Right.
But the ways of meeting them are more shallow.
Mm-hmm.
In my clinical practice, I would say that the rise of the internet dating option has actually overall been good for people who are looking for a partner.
Holy shit, the internet making it easier for people to connect and talk was a good thing? Oh, mind blown. Thank you for the insight.
Now, there is some speculation and some evidence that it lowers the transaction price of separation and divorce. You know, because one of the reasons you don't separate or you don't get divorced is like, well, you're going to find someone else. And if it's easier to find someone else, then perhaps you're more tempted to sever the relationship. So maybe you lose in one place where you gain in the other. But I think there are different kinds of hard that it is. You know, it's hard for couples to figure out how to manage two careers. It's hard for women to figure out how to get educated and get their career launched at the same time that they're finding a partner and having kids. Because women have this tight time frame, you know. I mean, they've got to get a lot done by the time they're mid-30s for sure. And so it's not.
What do you want women to get done? Make sure they're not wearing shoes, make sure they're not educated, make sure they're pumping out babies. Like, can you say something specific, Peterson? I know you won't because that's just kind of how you talk. But try.
Not much time, you know, it's like 15 years really from the time you're an adult. It's you better get at it. It's not
mid-30s. Yeah. That seems sus, but I am biased to hate Jordan Peterson because he rose to popularity off of lying about a Canadian bill.
not very long.
Right.
So I think there are new challenges that have arisen that weren't there for previous generations. But previous generations had it hard in other ways.
That's very
So-
true. Yeah.
I don't get that. That wasn't really dating advice. Any men or masculine dudes, masculine people, you want to tell me if any of that video helped you? Like, for real? I don't know.